Tonight, Wally West races against a super fast blue cartoon critter, and no, it's not the one you're thinking of. Superman and Lois Lane finally reunite, and boy oh boy do they get busy. And your drinking game for the night is take a shot every time Talos says, "Citizens!" He'll be dead in an hour. All that more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 188 of the Not-So-New 52. I am your host and we are off the rails, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, last week, for anyone who didn't see that episode, was the final week that DC Comics put the New 52 branding on any of their books. As it stands now, going into this month, we have removed the New 52 branding, but the show isn't over yet because honestly it would be a really bad ending to just say like, and now I'm done with like none of the plot lines resolved for half of the writers. So we will continue on. Convergence month is upon us. That is what this 8-week period will be called. And it is the event book of Convergence. Now, I'm not going to go into the actual plots of Convergence here, but I will give a little bit of backstory for anybody who is approaching this episode without having seen any of the prior stuff. You'll need a little bit of knowledge of Earth 2. I give that in the review, so just be aware that we're dealing with Earth 2 books here. The whole reason that this event is taking place is because DC was moving their offices from the East Coast, New York, to the West Coast, Burbank, and they just needed something to fill some time, so this is exactly what they're doing. Beyond that, there's just a few little housekeeping things. One, for anyone who watches the video version, you'll know that I do a little bit of color coding off in this panel off to the side, and that is to represent the different families of books. There's a Bat family of books, a Super family of books, a Justice League family of books. There's 7 different families in total. That's gone. That's off the rails now. Not the color coding, but the families themselves. That was a New 52 thing, and once they graduated out of that, they stopped using it. So I'm kind of making it up as I go. As it so happens, for the Convergence month, as we have it here, they've actually kind of split them very conveniently into 4 families. We have books that take place in the pre-Flashpoint timeline. We have books that take place in the pre-Zero Hour timeline. We have books that take place in a I think it's Crisis on Infinite Earths timeline, so like the really old stuff, and then a pre-Infinite Crisis timeline. So you got some different variability. I'm going to be representing each of those as a separate family, but they're also broken up by week. So anything from this week's episode is just purely Flashpoint, pre-Flashpoint focus. So, all right, is there anything else I need to say here to get this going? I don't think so. I just need to tell you what books are out this week. Because the families are gone, and that's usually how I ordered the show, I'm just going to do it in the order that the books, the trade paperbacks I'm reading out of, have them printed. Hope that makes sense to you, because it's the only way I could think of. So in that absolutely not that order, this week's comics include the main Convergence series, number 1. We also have, in no particular order, Batgirl, Justice League, Nightwing/Oracle, Superman, The Question, Batman and Robin, Harley Quinn, Speed Force, The Atom, and Titans. I think that's everything. I think we got everything that we need to out of the way, so sit back, relax, and let me tell you a story about a man named Talos. Convergence number 1, written by Scott Lobdell and Jeff King, art by Carlo Pagulayan. Apologies for that. Yeah, beginning of Convergence. This is, of course, the best starting point because Convergence number 0 was nothing. There was nothing to that issue at all. So this issue, we open up in the Injustice universe, which is completely separate from like everything else. It's its own continuity, but we open up there where Superman is hovering over Batman, and apparently like they had some big fight or something like that. Superman is saying, you want my help now that everything's gone to hell. You ignored my warnings. And there's Flash and Batman and all these other characters, and they're coming up to Superman saying, like, damn it, you need to be able to help us. So many people, their lives are at risk and whatnot. And then Superman looks behind him and sees an entire Gotham City is just destroyed. And it seems like it's destroyed by natural causes. Like there's lava in the streets, mountains are rising up and all that. And we get this booming voice that says, oh, it's too late for you to see the light. You have proved yourselves unworthy. And some mountains shoot up around these characters. And as everyone gets caught up in it, Superman starts flying away. He's just like, nah, screw that. And as he goes away, he's like, oh, wait, I hear millions of people crying out. Maybe I should help. And then he looks down and he's like, nah, let this be a reminder for what happens if you cross Superman. And then a giant-ass rock hand comes up, grabs Superman, and just, like, crushes him inside of the rock hand. And he says, yes, this was a failed experiment. My master was wrong to send you here. I must begin again. Okay, if you have not given a damn about the Earth 2 storyline, long story short, over in Earth 2 World's End, Darkseid destroyed the planet Earth. And there was a small little group of quote-unquote survivors that were fighting him right up to the end, and the series ended with them seemingly dying. So this issue picks up with some crackling energy, and out comes Thomas Wayne Batman and Dick Grayson, who's just a writer in that universe. They come out and they're like, what the? Oh, this isn't Earth, and it's not Apocalypse. What's going on? And then one by one, coming out of this weird silvery goo that they're wrapped in inside the portal, is Jay Garrick the Flash, Alan Scott the Green Lantern, Val Zod, who was a Superman that also survived there. And that's pretty much it for now. And they're coming down, they make a landing for themselves that isn't landing on like huge spikes and stuff. And as they look around, they're like, okay, what happened? And Batman's like, I have an idea. Just a few minutes ago, we were being zapped by Darkseid's Omega beams. And then I don't know what happened. And everyone's like, okay, Batman, thanks for the help. And Dick Grayson just punches him in the face because he says something about like, oh, maybe it was gratitude. Like, we should be great. We should show gratitude at whatever being or whatever just saved us. And Dick Grayson's like, bro, my family, my wife died on that Earth, and my son went up in a spaceship trying to escape, and I don't know where the hell he is. And so as he starts arguing with them, Jay Garrick steps in and he's like, hey, my mom was on one of those ships too. I may not have lost family that are definitely dead, but I'm probably never going to see that ship again, so screw you, buddy. And as they are down on the ground fighting it out, all of a sudden, a hand starts poking out through the dirt, saying, help, I can't breathe, get this off me. And as the person comes fully out of the ground, it turns out it's Yolanda Montez, who on Earth 2 was the previous Avatar of the Red, until she gave up all of her abilities to make Alan Scott the Avatar, not just for the Green Lanterns, the green, but like all the different parliaments. So she comes out and immediately starts smooching on Dick Grayson. These two have never met before. So he's like, what the hell is that? Who are you? What are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm just happy to be alive, all that stuff. And he, once again, Dick Grayson's all emo of just like, well, tell that to the people who died. And she's like, yeah, I know. I was there. I was the Avatar of the Red. I felt them all die. It was horrible. And I felt every single one of them. But either way, they start looking around. They're like, okay, so obviously we're no longer on Earth. That's something that's going on. Like, what do we do next? And Val Zod's like, well, you know, we can still save the Earth. If we were teleported out, maybe we can go back. And immediately Alan Scott's like, that's not going to happen. Let's just shut that down right now. But they do start getting attacked by the weird silvery goop stuff again. And they start trying to fight it off. They don't know what it is. It's clearly targeting them. We see Jay Garrick starting to get wrapped up in it as everyone else is dealing with their own stuff. So Yolanda comes up and she starts clawing it off of him with actual, like, claws. And they're like, wait a minute, hold up. You gave away your red powers. How do you have claws still? And she's like, guess I still have some Avatar in me. So Dick Grayson looks around and starts seeing this dome, this barrier coming up around them. And he alerts the rest of the crew, just like, hey, we got to make sure that thing doesn't seal us up. And immediately, Flash goes down. He's feeling weak. Green Lantern's powers start fading. There's nothing that they could do. So Val-Zod's like, leave it to me. So he starts going around and ice breaths the growing dome so that it doesn't continue to grow. And it's like, all right, well, that should slow it down long enough for us to get out. But then all of a sudden, in comes Big Floating Rock Man, whose name is Telos. And he's like, hey, where's your city? You guys are supposed to be in a city. And they're like, our entire city / Earth was destroyed, and we're the only ones left. We don't even have a planet. And Telos is like, no city? Well, that's unacceptable. That's not that. I swear I followed the instructions right. I grabbed it at the last possible second. I made sure I didn't cause a cosmic disaster. I followed my master's rules. I don't understand what happened here. And Yolanda's like about to throw a punch, and Flash is like, hold on. Let's not mess with the God thing yet. Okay, let's see what's going on here. So as they're listening to him kind of just work through his little mistake here, Alan is like, hey, can we talk to this master person? He seems like the guy who, if we're having some immigration issues, let's talk to him. And Telos is like, oh, no, he's not here. He's leaving everything up to me. And you're here without a city. So, yeah, I'm the one who brought you here, though. And immediately they're like, okay, cool. Why did you bring us here? Tell us what's going on. And he's like, oh, to continue the work of my master. And he summons a statue of Brainiac. And he's like, yes, and he will judge you. And literally they start getting all wound up again. They start getting put in the silver goo. This time, either they don't fight back or they can't fight back. But Telos is like, all right, well, you're here now. And that is the final piece of the collection. That's it. The last world that will ever be collected. So this is a sign that I need to initiate the final plan of my master's thing. I'm going to do it. I'm going to pit all of the different worlds that we've collected against each other. And only one of them will be able to rejoin actual time stuff. And so he starts pulling up, this whole thing is hexagons. All the domes are made of hexagons, everything's hexagons. And he pulls up some hexagons in the sky, and he shows all the different worlds that Brainiac has collected on this planet. And they're like, oh, you've imprisoned these people. He's like, no, I didn't. They were going to die. I've saved them. But yes, now only one of them may remain. So I'm going to guess that you guys aren't going to be in the winning bracket there. So he turns on the intercom, essentially, and he just goes tap, tap, tap. Hey, everybody. And this is, I'm going to read this almost verbatim because this is throughout all of the different tie-ins. Everything that we read that is a tie-in has this little speech here of him going out and saying, hey, everybody, listen up. So he basically says, citizens, now is the time. Judgment's here. Only the strong will survive. I'm the one who's been in charge of everything. My name is Telos. Hi, I am also the world that you walk on. I've been taking care of you for the past year for some of you. For some of you, it's been longer. But now the domes are going to fall. You will have champions. They will fight each other. And whichever ones are unable to fight to defend their place, their world goes, their city falls. And he straight up calls out, like, some of you were here at a time of infinite crisis. Some were here at their 0 hour, maybe a flashpoint, kingdom come. And he just literally lists off the name of all of it. But he's like, regardless, all of you are now part of one big battle world. He doesn't call it that because that's a Marvel thing, but regardless, he's like, yep, defenders of each domain will battle the other. Only the greatest heroes will live. And if you try to get around my tournament system, you will be disqualified and destroyed. So don't do that. You're gonna fight each other, goddammit. So, yes, he says only one city will survive the day. All other worlds will know oblivion. And as he turns off the intercom, the Earth 2 people are like, you're crazy if you think anybody's going to go for that. And he's like, no, this is Convergence. It's already begun. And we see a bunch of different Supermen of a bunch of different hexagonal grids are all flying up seemingly to fight each other. So that's issue 1. All right. The context, the overall story that's going on here, pretty bland. I'm not going to argue for that point. I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, no, all these worlds or whatever. It's a whole thing. What I do appreciate about it is that there's been this seeding to it. There's been this it's been at least a year. It's been since the Future's End stuff began, where they've been building up to this, and I appreciate that it's not just pulled right out of their ass. They've at least been working towards it, but it does feel super cheap to just be like, yes, a tournament, it's the only thing that makes sense. Like, they don't even try to justify, okay, why can't they just stay in the domes? And I know that part of that is just Telos doing his own thing, just making up his own rules and thinking that this was what must be true, but like, it's not a good setup here. As for the Earth 2 stuff, I mean, either you're going to be interested in their storyline or you're not, and that's going to make or break this for you. If you didn't come into this with the entire Earth 2 World's End storyline under your belt, I mean, they do a brief job of explaining things, but like, you're not going to have an interest. It's not there. So yeah, it's already on like 2 back feet and it's fighting uphill. So I think for this one, I'm probably going to say it's a 6. And that's only as someone who read all of the previous stuff. If you go in blind to this, I can only imagine it's like a 4. This is the most confusing possible thing to jump into. But yeah, it's a 6 for me, and we'll see what more Telos has in store. Convergence Superman #1, written by Dan Jurgens, art by Lee Weeks. So we open up this issue in Gotham City, Flashpoint, or pre-Flashpoint timeline, so post-crisis, however you want to call it. And we see, leaping across the rooftops is Clark Kent, who has since been depowered ever since being under the dome. And he's talking to Lois Lane on the intercom and basically saying, yeah, if Batman can do it, I can do it. I'm just going to stop crime without powers. And Lois is like, bro, he trained for years, man. You ain't him. And it's just like, oh, okay, you don't need to say that. But he comes across some drug dealers or whatever. So he jumps in, and Lois points out, they might be armed. You're not invulnerable. Be careful. But he jumps into the fray anyway. And as he starts doing the fight, we get the big Telos call in the sky saying, citizens, pay attention. You're going to fight each other. And as Clark is fighting these drug dealers, he's like, hey, do you hear a giant voice? Could you maybe record that? I'm a bit busy right now. And she's like, yeah, totally. I'll tell you what it's about when you're done. So he jumps in. He starts taking out these drug dealers. And he's calling him out on, like, making life under the dome worse. How dare they? And as he's doing this, we see Jimmy Olsen was also in Gotham, and he's taking pictures. And he's like, oh, man, this is going to be great. Once I get out of here, I'm going to be able to publish this into an awesome story. So one of the drug dealers, turns out, is heavily armed to the point of a flamethrower. And he's like, all right, I don't know who you are, masked man, but I got this. And he turns the flamethrower on Clark. Lois starts freaking out, but he's like, hey, it's all right, Lois, I'm fine. And his other suit, his mask, fades away and reveals the Superman logo. And we got post-crisis Superman. And everyone's like, whoa, hold on. Superman's in Gotham? What's this about? But he starts getting fired upon, and he's just tanking all the bullets. Turns on his heat vision, heats up the guns inside everybody's hands, and it turns out that one of the drug dealers found Jimmy and is like, my gun wasn't heat visioned, and I'm gonna shoot this redhead unless you let us go. And Superman just super speeds back in quick enough to grab Jimmy and sets him on top of a rooftop. And now Clark doesn't really care about what's going on with the drug dealers. He's like, yeah, whatever, that's fine. I got to get to the bottom of this. So he starts flying away. He goes back to his apartment with Lois, and she's like, hey, you're flying. That's cool. And he's like, yeah, no, this is great. I'm happy to finally have my powers back. And she's like, yes, my Superman has returned. And they have a big hug and embrace and kiss. And it's revealed that Lois Lane is pregnant. And they say, hey, we're finally getting out of this dome. It's great it's happening now because my due date's pretty soon. And at that point, he's like, hey, I got my x-ray vision back. You want to find out if it's a boy or a girl? And he's like, nah. We're going to be surprised. So at that point, Lois starts mentioning, like, hey, that big voice in the sky, do you want to look into that? And he just sits down on the couch next to Lois, and he's like, I just want to, like, take this in for a minute. Let me just enjoy being with you for a while we can. And eventually he listens back to the voice. He hears Telos' whole message about fighting each other. And immediately Clark's just like, oh God, this is going to end badly. I have to go deal with this. And so it turns out that I don't know if Superman was officially made a champion, but he's like, if there's a Batman or whatever on the other planet, then we need to go deal with that. So he puts in his earpiece, talks to Lois, and starts flying off. Superman uses vision to see all the different other cities on Telos, and it's just like, oh God, yeah, no, there must be a variety of worlds. I'm gonna hope we don't actually have to fight here. That's my main goal. Cut to Flashpoint universe. We got the Flashpoint Batman saying, all right, suit up, we're going to war. And the rest of his council of Cyborg and Captain Thunder and the very emaciated Kal-El from that planet, they're all like, yep, we're doing it. We got to go in. If they attack us first, who knows if we'll be ready? Except for Kal-El, who's like, I don't know if fighting's really the best thing. And they're like, shut up. You were barely even in Flashpoint. Get out of here. So they get on the radar that Superman's flying in at top speed, and it's just like, all right, well, we got to do something about that. So everyone on top priority checking out here. We then cut over to Star Labs, where Jimmy Olsen is talking to Professor Hamilton, and Hamilton's just like, hey, I got something that you might find useful, Jimmy. Think of it as an old friend, and it's some sort of rocket car. We get to it later. But regardless, Superman's flying out through the desert, and he's like, oh, God, it feels so good to be out of there. That place sucked. But, yeah, let me just see where else I can find it. And then all of a sudden, he gets knocked out of the sky by some fast-flying person who's saying, out of my way, I've seen her, she's alive, and just continues to fly off. And Superman's like, all right, I have no idea who that was, and I'm sure it relates to a main story elsewhere. And then he gets decked by Captain Thunder from Flashpoint, and Thunder's just landing hits, shooting him, and he's like, wait, hold on, Shazam, what? And he's like, no, my name's Captain Thunder, not that you'll live long enough to remember it, and knocks Superman into a mountain. And Superman's just like, all right, I got one of you on my planet, and he would be smart enough to listen. Are you smart enough as him? And that's where Batman is just like, oh God, he's wearing the same symbol as Kal-El. He's a Kryptonian. We got to take him out now. So in comes Abin Sur and Cyborg. They start loading off shots on Superman. And Superman's like, listen to me, please. Nobody has to die today. And to their credit, Abin Sur and Cyborg are like, okay, look, we can trust you. You don't have anybody else like attacking our city or anything like that. And he's like, no, you have my word. And it's like, all right, we'll back down for a second. And then in comes Jimmy Olsen saying, don't worry, Superman, I got your back. Check it out. I got the Whiz Wagon, which I don't know what that is. But regardless, Superman's like, no, goddammit, Jimmy, you're ruining everything. And Jimmy gets blasted by the Green Lantern. Superman gets blasted by the Green Lantern as Jimmy just flies off. We then go back to Kal-El, who apparently over in the Flashpoint event interacted with Lois Lane, and he can hear her talking to the real Superman. So he's like, she's alive. She died over in Flashpoint story, but she was always nice to me. I have to go get her. I have to go find her. So then we go over to Thomas Wayne Batman, who's from Flashpoint, and he's like, oh, wait a minute, that's a different Gotham. That might be from the universe where my son, where Bruce is still alive. After all, the Flashpoint timeline, I got rid of Barry Allen just to make that happen. So will we be able to fight them if he's still alive there? And we cut back to Kal-El as he's busting down Lois Lane's door just with like a flick of his finger, and she's like, oh my God, who are you? And he's like, it's me, it's Kal-El. Do you not remember me? We were such good friends, but I can take care of you now. I'd missed you. And Lois is like, hey, okay, I am not your Lois Lane, and I know someone who looks kind of similar to you. And he's like, oh, but Lois, the city's going to die. You have to come with me. I can't let you die. And Lois is like, I have a baby, please, no. And it's just final panel is her screaming out for Clark as Clark is being pounced on by the Flashpoint Universe Council. So, yeah. I like it. I'm a sucker for it. I think that this is doing everything that it needed to get me engaged with these characters immediately. Even the Flashpoint characters are made to be somewhat sympathetic here of, yeah, everything we know about our universe sucked. We've been stuck here for like a year, and now we're finally getting out. We need to prepare for the worst. Just all of it works for me, especially the relationship between Superman and Lois. I think that is possibly... I don't want to say like the best thing to come out of Convergence because I haven't finished reading Convergence, but like I know some stuff about where it goes, and I think that is something that makes this an event that can't be ignored, is just this issue and the follow-up. So yeah, I think this one's probably like a solid 7.5 for me, and it only has room to go up. I'm going to hesitate a little bit just because, you know, it did a little bit of weakness in terms of why was Superman in Gotham at the time. They never really established that. It's not until I think a later book that we end up getting a bit of an information, but yeah, it's okay. It's good. I just know where it goes, and I really like this characterization. Convergence, the question number 1, written by Greg Rucka, art by Cully Hamner. So we pick up in Gotham pre-Flashpoint, and we see everything kind of sucks. We're down in like the slums of the city, and narration is basically saying, yeah, a lot of people, when they got put in the cage, when they got put in the dome, they fight over anything. Maybe it's just because they're bored. Maybe it's because they think it's a natural state of humanity, but it's what they do. So we cut down to a pharmacy that has been absolutely raided. There's almost nothing left. But while there are 3 guys in there who are trying to either stake some turf or steal whatever's left, we see that they are fighting against Two-Face. And Two-Face is like, yeah, 3 against 2. Last chance, walk away. And they come in to attack. Two-Face just starts beating the ever-loving crap out of them. And he's like, all right, you guys should have listened to me. I was only trying to protect you, but you forced me to do this. And he flips his coin, and he catches it in midair. And as he looks at it, we don't get to see what it is, but we see the 3 guys are able to run out of the building. And as they do so, they pass by a shadowy figure, a female, who enters in after them holding a sword. And Two-Face is currently breaking into a safe in the back. And he's like, oh, there we go. And as he cracks it open, in walks the female figure. We find out, like a few panels later, this is, why am I blanking on her name? I literally can see it in my head, but I can't say it. I'll get to it. Anyway, it's the question. It's oh my God, Montoya. Renee. There it is. So it's Renee Montoya. So it turns out he was doing this because he believed that there was still at least some drugs left in at least one pharmacy somewhere in Gotham. He was right. They were in this safe. And it's just a bit of morphine. It's just for people who are suffering at a hospital, which apparently includes Renee Montoya's dad. And so she takes it, and Two-Face is like, hey, you know, that stuff's going to sell big on the black market. I can escort you if you want. And he's like, I'll be fine. And he says, hey, okay, fine. I'm sorry to hear about your dad. So they go into the hospital. Everyone's freaking out like, oh, thank God they got morphine. And her dad is clearly on like his deathbed. He's not doing so hot. And she muses about like, death still hurts even when it is the only escape from being trapped in this dome. Like, I should want him to be free, but it's still something I have to deal with. So we then see Huntress arrives at Renee's apartment. It's kind of implied they're in a relationship, like a little bit. It's hard to say exactly, but as she's coming in, she's like, oh yeah, I stopped some idiots who were trying to steal a produce store, all this stuff. And we see Renee is getting prepped, getting into her question outfit. And she's checking out her forehead for some sort of mark. And I assume this is some other storyline, but Huntress is like, hey, it's gone. It's not coming back. Don't worry about it. And they talk about her dad briefly until she mentions Two-Face helped out. And Huntress is like, you can't trust him. You know you can't trust him. Don't forget who he is. And she's like, I always know. I'm heading out. I'll be back later. So we then go over to Two-Face's, I guess, headquarters, his little place he hangs out, puts a gun to his head, flips the coin, it comes up heads. And it turns out every day he's flipped this coin for like a year, and it's always come up heads, and he doesn't know why. We see Question is sitting in the window, and he's like, is this your fault? It keeps coming up heads? And he's like, no, not me. I'm just here to watch. I'm just here to see it happen. And he's like, all right, well, you know what? If it comes up tails tomorrow, would you try to stop me? And she's like, it's not going to. And she's like, okay, say it does. Would you try to stop me? And Renee's like, I wouldn't try. I would succeed. I would definitely stop you. And Two-Face has no idea who the Question is. And he's like, why would you care? What do you care? You're here watching me every day while I try to kill myself. And I'm a dangerous man. Why would you want me to be able to survive? And she's like, you know what? How about this? Why don't we flip for it? Why don't we flip for if you can kill me because you're so pissed off at me? So she takes the coin, tries flipping it, and he's like, no, don't do that. It's my coin. Don't do that. And she's like, oh, come on. What? Are you going to break your streak? And so she flips the coin up in the air. He catches it. And he looks at it in his heads again. And he's like, God damn it. Why does this keep happening? So question's like, look, I don't know the answer for sure, but that is the question. And it's got to do with why the hell we're in a dome. And he's like, do I know you? You seem really familiar. And she's like, nope, you have no idea. And then the Telos booming voice comes over the intercom and says, hey, everybody, you got to fight. Dome's coming down. So at that point, Harvey grabs a gun and he's like, hey, there's got to be another Harvey Dent out there. This is it. This is the reason why it's been coming up head so much. There's another one out there. And question's just like, no, you don't know that for sure. And even if there was, what, you're going to kill this guy just because weird disembodied God voice says so? And Harvey's like, oh, I'm going to make him kill me, kill us. And question's like, no, I can't let you do that. But he flips the coin and he's like, oh yeah, I'll flip you for it. I'll show you. And question says, no, the rules have changed. Like, this might actually be something where you can flip tails. Don't do it. But he flips it anyway. And as he looks at the coin, he's like, huh, we'll take a look at that. And he baits Question over to look at the coin, which came up heads, but he bashes Question in the back of the head, knocking her out and just like being able to make his escape. So Huntress comes in sometimes later, says like, all right, what did I tell you? Don't trust Two-Face. And she's like, I know. So what's up? We have to go find him. We got to go stop him. Do you know where he's at right now? And she's like, no, but I figured we would need a little bit of help in finding and stopping him. So I called in some backup. And then from behind, saying Renee's name, is Kate Kane, Batwoman. So she says it's been a while. Again, I don't know exactly where the post-crisis storyline between them left off. If it's anything like where New 52 picked up, not great. Because they were not a thing at that point. So, yeah, I mean, it's an intriguing enough story. I do feel like it's kind of reliant on post-crisis knowledge. I think just a little bit too much. You get all this stuff of like, oh, Two-Face and being able to trust him and all this other stuff. I would like a little bit more explanation, but ultimately the story does still work. I still understand the relationships between the characters as they are presented to me. So I think overall this one's going to get I'd say 7. It feels like a good 7 to me. I like it. It's got some promise to it, and I'd like to see where it ends up. So cool. Convergence Justice League #1, written by Frank Tieri, art by Vicente Cifuentes. So, I don't know what the post-crisis final Justice League lineup was, but this follows essentially an all-female cast. We have Kara Zor-El, we have Jesse Quick, we have Zatanna, we have Mara, I think Jade's in there as well. But we open up 1 year ago, right before the dome fell, where Jesse Quick has gone into labor. And Kara is flying her across town in Gotham and is just plows right into a hospital saying, oh, she's in labor, give her help. So apparently all the girls were in Gotham to give her a baby shower. And it was a surprise baby shower, but of course she went to labor that very day. And as she's being wheeled off down to a delivery room, in teleports, I believe it's Vixen, Jade, and Zatanna. And they bring along the presents from the baby shower. Turns out that one of the nurses is saying how there is a giant yellow gorilla trying to enter the hospital, and they're drawing the line there. It's Congo Bill, aka Congorilla. Search me, I don't know. But they basically say, okay, yeah, that's a whole thing going on. And then all of a sudden, the dome falls. The dome is across Gotham, and everyone looks out like, hey, what is that? What's going on? Just as the doctor comes out to say, hey, congratulations to Jessie Quick. She's a mom. Cut to 1 year later. Kara is beating up some guy in a club who apparently was trying to grope her, and he gets escorted out by security on the demand of Zatanna. Turns out that Zatanna has been... all of them are without their powers. They're just normal people, but Zatanna has managed to turn her act into a bigger thing by being one of the only like Z-level celebrities left in Gotham when the dome fell. So she's turned it into a bit of a career. And everyone else is like, oh yeah, you got this big life for yourself. Except for Jessie, who's like, I love being a stay-at-home mom. It's great, no big deal. But they're all out at the club tonight, out with Zatanna. Congo Bill's watching the kid, and they cut to that shot for no reason. But as they're out enjoying themselves, they look out on the balcony of this club and see Mara. And she's looking all depressed and upset. And Zatanna's like, yeah, give her a break. She's gone through a lot. And so Zatanna comes out and says, hey, Mara, I told all of our friends that you were going to have a good time tonight. You're making me a liar. And she's like, sorry, I'll leave. And it's like, no, that's not what I was hoping for. Come on, let's go in. You forget about Aquaman not being here right now. You can just put that away for tonight. And she's like, oh, easy for you to say. And it's meant as like a jab at Zatanna in her fancy job and all that. But regardless, that's the moment where Telos shows up and he goes, citizens, time to fight, dropping the domes. So underneath Gotham Harbor, we have a guy getting beaten up, an Atlantean, by Flashpoint Aquaman, who his Mara died in the course of that story, and he's beating this guy up because he uttered the name of Mara. And he's like, okay, you've been beating me up for weeks now. Just release me. Come on, this has gone on long enough. All I did was say her name. And Aquaman's pulled aside, said like, hey, you might want to see what's going on upstairs. But before he leaves, he stabs the guy in the chest and there says, there, you're released. So he sees Telos saying the whole thing of like, oh, champions must fight, blah, 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 check it out. And he looks over at the surveillance that the base has on the Gotham City, and he sees out on the balcony of that porch is Mara. And he's like, it's her. It's exactly as I remember. They're giving me another chance. I'm taking it. Let's go. So all of the girls gather around outside the club. Their powers are back. So they're like, okay, that's cool, but like, what's even happening here? And as they look around for Mara to figure out where she is, she's on the phone trying to call up Arthur, call up Aquaman, be like, oh, finally, the dome's down. Maybe we're back. But she gets kidnapped, taken away. And the rest of the girls see her being loaded up onto a giant Atlantean ship right off the, like, I don't know what to call it, the port, the dock, whatever it is. And as they start running towards it, one of the Atlantean guards blows into a horn, which summons a giant Cthulhu Kraken mixture, which must have always been in Gotham Bay, according to the rules of this story. But immediately Supergirl comes up and just like, I got this, and just knocks it like clear across the entire bay. So it's away, but they lost track of the ship in all the fighting. So they say, all right, we'll get her back because, there's not enough water for even Aquaman to hide from us. So then we cut to inside of the throne room. And Mara's like, you're not my Aquaman. Arthur would never treat me this way. And he's like, you're right. I'm not. But we can have each other now, and eventually you'll grow to love me. And he just lays one on her, to which point she throws a mean left hook, literally causes him to bleed. And just like, I think you're more like my wife than you think you are. And she's like, oh, look, all my friends are going to show up. They're going to kick your crazy ass. And he's like, hey, don't be ridiculous. I've got my powers back. With the dome down, I can now summon all the sea creatures out there. And even if your friends show up, let them come. And we see all of these horrific undersea creatures that Aquaman controls, along with the Atlantean army, that are ready to fight against the women as they show up. So, yeah. I like Flashpoint Aquaman as being the villain, the antagonist here. I appreciate that. I just think that the selection of protagonists is kind of weak. It's not that, like, I don't care that it's the all-female Justice League. That's fine. Making it a baby shower makes sense. I'm cool with all that. It's that they haven't done anything. Like, throughout this entire bit, the only thing they did was go into the hospital for the baby shower, beat up one guy who was groping Supergirl, and then Supergirl punches the Kraken. So Supergirl, honestly, I'd be like, okay, yeah, no, cool, she's going after Mara. But to have all the rest of this group here with zero sort of showing off what they're even capable of once the dome comes down, or even ignoring that, just like the friend dynamic. I forgot Vixen was in this until I saw her on the panel, because she just does not interact. Same with Jade. So there's issues to it. I think it might just be a little bit overstuffed is the issue. They're trying to fit too much into 2 issues here, but we'll see how the second one turns out. For this one, though, it's probably going to be like a 6 for me. It just didn't quite land right. I don't know how better to describe it. Convergence Batgirl #1, written by Alisa Kwitney, art by Rick Leonardi. So this is set out in a desert. So all the other books in the Flashpoint set time and the pre-Flashpoint continuity are set in Gotham. And to an extent this one is, but we open up in a desert. And it doesn't really explain where the hell we are, except that Tim Drake, Cassandra Cain, and Stephanie Brown, Batgirl, are all out here. And we see Tim and Cassandra are sleeping. Steph goes over to wake up Cassandra, says, hey, it's your watch. I need to go. And Tim's like, oh, yeah, where do you think you're going? And she's like, to pee. What are you doing, man? And he's like, oh, sorry, I just thought. And he's like, oh, yeah, you thought I'm just going to be leaving here and blah, blah, blah. And she goes off on this whole thing about, like, how if I don't fight, then Gotham loses and all this stuff. And she's angry. She's upset. She storms off. And Cassandra basically asks, why are you angry with her, Tim? And Tim's like, I'm not angry at her. It's the situation. She's unprepared. She hasn't trained. Like, why weren't either of us chosen? And Cassandra basically says, because she's not predictable. So we see Stephanie is like trying to find a good place to pee when all of a sudden she's jumped from behind by Catman, who says, oh, did I catch you at a bad time? And she's like, no, I knew you were here the whole time, lulling you into a false sense of security. And Catman's like, well, it could have worked on me. And then he just gets kneed in the nuts and gets up. So Tim Drake runs in. He's like, Batgirl, you got to come back. And she's like, hey, no, I got this fight. And he's like, no, he doesn't matter. There's something else going on, but I can't remember what it is. Why can't I remember what it is? And so Stephanie and Catman fight for a while where he calls out, like, what are you, Batman Gold? Like, this is weird. He's like, no, I'm Catman, and I should be off fighting against General Grodd's forces. He's the whole thing. And she's like, what the hell's a General Grodd? And she's like, oh, he's a giant telepathic ape. I'm surprised you don't know about him. Yeah, he's killing a bunch of my people. And she's like, okay, well, then why are you fighting me? Like, what are we doing here? And he's like, oh, delaying. After 6 months after Grodd's forces, I figure that you're something involved here, especially because Red Robin over there is smiling like an idiot in the middle of all this. And immediately she's like, yeah, that's weird. Hey, Tim, why are you smiling? And he's like, oh, sorry. You're just so cute. And she's like, okay, this is weird. Did you get, like, hit by some weird alien flower or something? What's going on? And eventually she puts her gear back on. She realizes, like, oh, wait a minute, something's happening. Cassandra must be in trouble. And as she runs back around the corner, there's Gorilla Grodd attacking Cassandra. And she's doing her best, but Stephanie is like, oh, God, I can't do this. They must have picked me by mistake. So, rewind. We're in Gotham. Everyone's been domed, and everyone's freaking out. Some people are, like, just straight up killing themselves. Some people are causing mayhem, acts of violence, stuff like that. But Batgirl, Stephanie Brown, is basically like, I just don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do the superhero thing. It's just too much. So she ends up becoming like a nurse's aide. We see her next to someone in an apartment giving birth to a child, just completely home birth, and they're trying to give her like a little bit of care. They don't have any drugs to be able to help out with, so she's forced to go through it raw and just like, hey, it's okay, it's all right, the pain you're feeling is natural, just push. And she does end up giving birth to the kid. And the nurse that she's with, the midwife, is like, oh man, why do these people, like these teenagers, just, they don't practice safe sex, they're not thinking ahead, like why would they ever give birth in a place like this? Like, why aren't they thinking forward? And Stephanie's just like, hey, you never know. I mean, it's that implies that you are thinking ahead. It's much more easy to get caught up in the passion of the moment. And as they're walking down the street, out jumps Killer Moth, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna attack you guys. And Stephanie just jumps forward being like, look, I get it. You're insecure about your looks and you would like to make people scream so that they just don't ignore you like everyone else does. That's why you wear the mask. We're not doing this tonight. Goodbye. And she just walks away, and Killer Moth's like, what? What? And so as they walk into Stephanie's apartment, the nurse goes her own separate way. We see Red Robin like looks down at Killer Moth, and Killer Moth's like, what was that about, man? So in comes Cassandra, and she was out on patrol with Tim, and just like, oh yeah, got into a fight, one of them punched me in the boob, and she's like, oh god, I'm so sorry. But as they're talking about doing reading lessons, Cassandra's like, sorry, I have a headache, don't want to do it. And as they're watching the news is basically saying like, we are thinking about how to dissolve the dome, but we're still many years away. And it's like, well, that's not even news. And so Cassandra goes over to their pet guinea pig and is like, I want meat tonight. And Stephanie's like, no, we're not going to kill our pet. We have cared for it this long. We fed it. It's grown. We can't just kill it. And she's like, yes, we can. That's what farming is. That's clearly it. And then the TV literally says, like, here are some great recipes for fried guinea pig. So Stephanie threatens to fight if she doesn't put it down, and she's ready to go for it, but she's like, I'm going to get my ass handed to me. Cassandra could beat up Batman. But before they're even ready to fight, Cassandra calls her out saying, like, your body gives you away. You don't want to fight. Your eyes are too sad and doe-eyed, like nothing's even mattering. And then all of a sudden on the screen, it's just like, oh, the domes are coming down. We're all able to, but then like people are being forced to fight. Here's the list of the champions that have been chosen to fight in our city's name. And one of them is Batgirl. And she's like, wait, why me? I'm retired. I'm not even doing this. Why not Black Bat? Why not Red Robin? Why me? And she says she doesn't even have her outfit anymore, to which Cassandra says, hey, Tim found it in the street after you gave it up. He saved it. And she's like, oh my God, did you wash it? And she's like, no, didn't think about it. So she puts it back on, starts training a little bit with Cass, and her mind's just a million miles away. She's not thinking about this at all. She's actually thinking about her past back when she was Spoiler and how things were actually really good with Tim, and she kind of just like misses being that young, silly person with no responsibilities. But Cassandra's just like, hey, look, I don't know what to do. We have no time to practice, and your head's not in it. And Red Robin comes in just like, oh, all right, what, are you ready to fight? Are you ready to go on our side here? You are in charge of not just your life, but all of the lives. At least let me help you. And as they look down on the street, they see tons of people are migrating out of Gotham. They make it to the bridges, and they're being held back by cops who are like, hey, we don't know what's safe out there. We don't even know where the other cities are. You're not allowed to leave until the mayor says so. And everyone's like, we've been stuck here a year. Screw you. We're getting out. So Steph runs to the front of the line, pulls out a megaphone, and is just like, hey, everybody, I got a canister on me that will fill this place up with gas, and all of you will go blind for possibly up to 12 hours. So back off. And she's just like, I bluffed. None of that's true. But as they are hanging out on this bridge, trying to control the civilians, in come some weird silver balls that lift up Steph. Cass and Tim grab hold, making sure she doesn't float away, and they all go through a portal and end up in the desert, seemingly picking up where we began this issue. All right. I think starting in Media Res is a bad choice. I think that already is like, you've introduced this new world with people that we don't know yet, and you're putting them in a place where it doesn't quite make sense. Also, as far as I'm aware, this is the only book, there might be one other one this week, but this is the only book that involves the champions being teleported elsewhere. So I don't know what that is all about, but sure, I guess maybe that was put in somewhere along the way. Beyond that, it's just kind of a rough art style that I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not familiar that much with Stephanie Brown as Batgirl, let alone Cassandra Cain either. So I feel like this book was made for those fans, and coming into it blind is a more hindrance than it is a help. So I'm going to say this one is probably like a 5.5 for me, and that sucks because I would have loved to have had a better introduction to these characters, but it just wasn't happening here. So 5.5 for this. Convergence, Nightwing / Oracle #1, written by Gail, Simone, art by Jan Duursema. So, yeah, this one picks up out in El Inferno, which I guess is either the desert of Telos or it is the Old West version of the Justice League's hometown. And we got the Old West Justice League, Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, all of them are just kind of steampunk inspired, and they're being attacked and killed by someone else. And it's very quickly revealed the one who's terrorizing their whole town is Hawkman and Hawkgirl from Thanagard, specifically the Hawk World versions of them. And they say, oh, yeah, we grew up on hell. You have no idea what being afraid is. And as they kill Blue Beetle and Guy Gardner, they look over at the robots that I guess Telos is using to judge these battles, and they're like, okay, we did it. Did we win? Did we win against them? And the bots don't say anything. They don't do anything. And they're like, screw it. You guys are just rule enforcers. You're gatekeepers. We gotta take this to the next level here. So they go up and they say, yeah, bring us your champions. We'll do whatever we have to do here. So as they go off to find their next challengers, they say, yeah, pray that your master keeps his deal or else we'll come after you. So they clearly think themselves as threats. We cut over to Gotham City earlier that day inside the dome, and Nightwing is going to stop a burglary by Mr. Freeze. He's off stealing diamonds in the museum. Yes, it's just Batman and Robin. And he's like, oh, I'm going to be going through the skylight. It's going to be great. And he's on the intercom. He's on the comms with Barbara, who's like, hold on, wait, that's super expensive skylight, don't do it, coming through a side window. And she's like, oh man, all right, fine. So he busts in. Mr. Freeze's goons fire off a few shots and try to freeze him, and he's like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of nostalgic. This is nice. I kind of missed you guys. And as he's kicking one of the goons in the face, Mr. Freeze is like, all right, screw it. Nah, it's over. I surrender. Here's the diamonds back. I've already stolen these things like 3 times since we went under the domes. Like, they didn't even put guards up. Like, I just walked in here. It wasn't even a problem. It doesn't matter. And we get from Barbara's narration that, like, a lot of people are feeling this way. A lot of people, as soon as the domes went up, they just had this extreme apathy towards everything they were doing. And they just started giving up one by one. And Barbara, despite the facade she's keeping up for Dick, is one of them. She's basically given up here as well. So Dick is, offset by all this. He's like, God, I think he just gave up. It was so weird. Hey, I'm just going to be around the city for a while. I'm going to go off comms. You good? And she's like, yeah, I'll see you for dinner. So as soon as he goes off comms, he meets up with Starfire. And Starfire's like, oh, Dick, I love the way that you talk to her. It's so nice. And he's like, oh, thank you for coming. Barbara doesn't know. And it's not quite clear exactly why she's here, but she basically says, hey, look, we all know that we need something that still matters, and so you have to do this. You have to be able to make yourself happy. So go ahead and do it. So we see later on Dick's back at home with Barbara, and he's still off-put by Mr. Freeze, saying like, man, I don't know, he's it's like this, I don't know how to put it. And then Barbara's like, yeah, I kind of get it. It's like seeing that you're on the treadmill and you have no way off. And like, yeah, I feel it exactly. But she masks that and she says like, yeah, maybe he just had like a really, really bad day. And Dick's like, I always felt bad for him. He had a true love. She died. And, I still got my true love, and kisses Barbara and says, hey, get dressed. We're going out. So, they go out, they go to a restaurant. It's always a little bit depressing for Barbara to go out to restaurants because the menu just keeps getting smaller and smaller as ingredients run out. Turns out the poison ivy is the only thing that's keeping everybody here alive to any extent, because she has essentially grown the entire Gotham Park into a agriculture center. So she's able to keep food going. And as they sit down for dinner, Dick's like, hey, look, we've been connected since the day we met. I loved you since then, and you're a partner I didn't know was possible. Whatever happens, I want you in my life. And he pulls out a ring and proposes to her. And she says, I can't. And Dick's like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. But of course, right then, before anything else can be said, Tellus pops over the intercoms. Hey, everybody, domes are coming down. You gotta fight each other. Bye. And like, they step out, they finally admire the sky without a hexagonal grid over it. And it's just like, oh my God, this is great. Dick, go get your gear on. It's a whole thing. Because in walks the Thanagarians. And they're like, hey, we know our Absorbicons, we have little computer things with us. We know that you run this city from behind, red-haired girl, and therefore we want to make it very clear that we are going to be stepping in and claiming our survival now. So you and your male pets must fight Hawkman and Hawkgirl, and the loser will get destroyed. And so immediately she's like, well, all right, you make a good pitch there as to why we should fight, but here's my counteroffer, Nightwing. And so Nightwing comes in, starts fighting against Hawkman. Immediately Barbara gets a knife around her neck from Hawkgirl and just being like, hey, you didn't let us finish. As such, here's your punishment. And so Hawkman throws Dick against a wall. He starts punching him. He's coughing up blood and all that. And once Nightwing's on the ropes, he's down on the ground. That's when Hawkgirl's like, now here's the thing. We don't actually like the idea of having to kill over and over again for our survival and whatnot. Not that we won't. We totally will. But we know that we run the risk of losing. And we don't want to risk that. So here's what we're thinking. We will forfeit because our city, Thanagar, not really a thing anymore. Like, it's gone. It's dead. We're fine with that. We're the last Thanagarians, so be it. But we can't have our entire planet's bloodline existence go out of existence. So here's what's going to happen. You guys will win, will forfeit, will help you in your fights coming forward, and in return, you let us stay here in your city. And she's like, okay, what's the catch, though? And it's like, well, the catch is, we will rule your city. We'll rule your entire planet once we get back into the main timeline. And they're like, no dice, man. Nightwing specifically is like, yeah, not going to happen. And so they activate their weird little computer robot thing, which fires a laser beam that explodes the Gotham Bridge. And it's like, we got like 35 more of these robots. Do you yield? And Nightwing's like, no deal. We're not doing it. And she's like, fine, but I'm going to give you an hour to think about it, and then we'll be back to finish you off if you still say no. So they fly off, and Nightwing's like, all right, we have an hour to prepare, Barbara. What do we do? And she's like, no, you saw how they fight. They're too strong. I can't fight them. We can't do this. And she's like, Barbara, it's Gotham. We got to do this. And look, I don't have time for this. I'm going to go hit up the Cave's arsenal. If you change your mind, you know where to find me. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. So Dick goes off. And Barbara's inner monologue is like, oh, Dick, you just don't understand, but I really do run this city. They have eyes everywhere. They're listening to everything we say. I know because I invented it. So the reason that I can't go with you to the fight, the reason I have to sit out of this is because I'm Barbara freaking Gordon. I'm the Oracle, and I started fighting them 10 minutes ago, as she pulls out her laptop. So this one is the only one where I think the timeline is a bit messed up for me. Because you open it with the Thanagarians crushing the Wild West version of the Justice League. Like, just immediately, like, boom, done. And then we cut back to earlier, but, like, the moment the dome falls, the Thanagarians are just right there. They're just coming in and they're like, hey, we're ready to fight. You guys are our next target. So either there was supposed to be a little bit of time there where the Thanagarians like didn't show up yet, and then like we had just a skipped little time break, or the Thanagarians somehow killed the Justice Riders before the domes fell. Neither of which really feels right. So I think this is the only one with a weird little time gap that doesn't make any sense. But as for the rest of the story, I think my only real critique is it doesn't tell us much of anything about the Hawk people. You can infer whatever you need to about the main continuity of Nightwing and Oracle. I think that that's easy enough to get into, but to not give us this background info of saying, okay, where in continuity are these Hawk people from, I think that was a little bit of a disservice. You just needed a little clue there for people who are not as in tune with it. So everything else is okay. I think it's probably going to be a 6.5 for me. But I appreciate the fact that they're not making Barbara helpless. They're giving her full Oracle stuff. I am encouraged to see what she'll do with it. But yeah, it's just the kind of the weirdest one out of the bunch so far. Convergence, The Atom, #1, written by Tom Peyer, art by Steve Yeowell. This is more of the pre-Flashpoint continuity set in Gotham, and we open up with a bunch of kids that are basically just sneaking around trying to find fun. Apparently, according to the narration boxes, it's like, yeah, all the adults just kind of went full miserable, but kids, you can't stop kids from trying to have adventure and mystery and danger. And as they are breaking into an old abandoned warehouse or something like that, one of them pushes too much on a structurally unsound wall, and the whole place starts coming down, to which the Atom busts in the door and starts looking around. And the kids are like, man, it's the Atom. That sucks. And they're like, oh, hey, and he's talking to himself. He's saying, like, don't tell me my origin. I know my origin story. And the kids are like, hey, we've been stuck in here all day. Can you help, go get help for us? And Adam's like, oh, but I am the help. And they're just like, bro, you don't even have superpowers anymore. Nobody under the dome has superpowers. What could you possibly do? And he's like, oh, yeah? Check this out. And it turns out the Atom's only ability right now is that he can grow his right hand to, the size of the rest of his body. That's it. He can shrink it back down to normal size, and he can grow just his right hand to the size of the rest of his thing. So he does that to lift up the rocks, getting it off the kids, and the narration over the thing is saying, yes, he has no clue why his powers are like this, but also he hears a voice in his head that is talking to him constantly. So, yeah, he might be kind of crazy as well. And so he offers the kids help to get out, and they're like, nah, man, screw it, we're out. We'll just take the exit. So they run out, and Adam starts talking to himself. He's like, I don't care if they thought I was lame. That's not why I do it. You know what matters? The cameras are here. So he steps back outside the building, and there's a news crew there. And the news crew is like, somebody showed up and saved these kids. Let's see who. Oh, God, it's the Atom. All right, well, back to you in the studio. And the Atom's like, wait, don't you want to ask me about what it feels like to be a hero and all that? And she's like, yes, of course. What is it? And he just grabs the mic and he's like, I got a few questions. I want to talk to people about it. 1, where does my mask go when I shrink? 2, what's up with my weird hand? And 3, what is justice? And he says, yes, the Justice League, they show justice. That's a whole thing of justice. But is it justice that Slade Wilson killed Ryan Choi, my predecessor, my successor, my partner? Does that make any sense? Is that justice? To which point we cut to Slade, who apparently has been in Gotham this whole time. He's taken on the identity of Cassius Wilde, and he's like, stupid Atom, I'm living a different life, and I didn't want to be found, but screw you calling me out for killing that kid. And so he goes and puts back on his Deathstroke outfit, ready to go fight. So we go over to Atom, who's using his big hand to beat up a bunch of robbers, and he keeps them outside a gem store, and he looks at the time, and he's like, oh my God, it's almost 9:30. I'm going to miss the bus. And so he runs across town, and he's once again talking to the voices in his head, and he's just like, shut up, you never even let me sleep. It sucks. And I'd rescue you if you were real. You know that, but you're not. And I'm not going to chop off my hand. So he turns out the bus that he's trying to get to is because there's this woman there named Maria who always brings him some leftovers from her, I don't know, restaurant job, whatever it is. And he just enjoys talking to her. She treats him like an actual hero, not a crazy person. And so they sit down, they start discussing the merits of taco salad. And he's like, oh, hey, where's your daughter? I think you told me. And she's like, oh, she lives in Buffalo. That's if Buffalo even exists anymore. And he's like, oh, I'm sure it does. We're the only place that took a hit. We're the only weird ones here. And she's like, hey, yeah, I do try to keep a good attitude about things, but it's there's no end in sight to this. I don't think we're being tortured. I think we're like bugs in a jar here. And as they're talking, Ray Palmer's like, hold on, shut up. Do you hear that? And she's like, what? I'm sorry if I'm bothering you. He's like, no. And then all of a sudden, explosion behind them. It's Deathstroke. He's like, hey, I heard you on the TV about me. And immediately Adam's just like, Maria, get out of here, or I'm going to have some fun. And Deathstroke's like, yeah, you are crazy if you're smiling to see me. And he's like, oh, I've been dreaming of this day. And the moment he's about to go for a punch, Telos over the intercom, citizens, domes are down, go fight each other. By the way, Adam, you are one of the champions. He doesn't say it directly, but as Deathstroke's going in for a swipe, Adam is suddenly teleported to a weird underground cave area where he will fight in this tournament for his city. And Adam just starts slamming his fist down on the ground, his giant-ass fist, going like, no, I was gonna get justice against Deathstroke. I'm so pissed off about this. And the voice in his head says to concentrate on saving Gotham, but he's like, from what? I don't see anything. And out of the water comes Barracuda from his homeworld of Angor, from the death squad called the Extremists. So immediately they're ready to fight. Adam goes and throws his big fist at Barracuda. It gets stabbed by his trident, and Adam just shrinks down super small. And Barracuda's like, Judge, coward, come here and fight. And he's like, oh, I'll do better than that. So he kicks Barracuda in the face, knocks him down. Barracuda just introduces himself, says, I am Barracuda, and says, we're fighting because the big voice said so. And he swats at Adam, to which Adam just walks out from underneath it because he shrunk down too small to even get swatted. And he's like, oh yeah, on my world, because Adam's been talking to himself the whole time. Barracuda says, now in my world, we would scoop out your frontal lobe, you degenerate psychotic. To which point Adam shrinks himself down to basically the size of a bullet and just goes through the little snout that Barracuda has. And he's like, yep, I am a lunatic, but to hear my deep self-loathing echoed by someone like you, I almost want to disagree. And he knocks out Barracuda, and he's like, wait a minute, what if I'm not losing my mind? What if it's not just an illusion? And to a voice off to the side says, that's what I've been trying to tell you. And it turns out it's Ryan Choi, who didn't die at Deathstroke's hands. I guess he's just been inside of Ray Palmer's brain the whole time. So, yeah, that's the issue. It's fun. It's a fun issue. All the other ones thus far have not had a funny quality to them. This one I think is the most fun. It is still... I don't know anything about post-crisis Adam. Ray Palmer is a mystery to me. So if he has a reputation for being crazy, it's a weird way to make it develop here. So I like it individually. I don't know how well it fits into the character, but I think I'm probably going to end up giving this one to flat 7. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting with it. My only real critique in terms of continuity-wise is that this is once again one where a champion just suddenly teleports to their fight rather than seeking out the other place they had to go, or at least having some sort of warning that they were a champion. It's just tiny little continuity things that makes Convergence kind of a sloppy mess, but it's really not that big of a deal. It still deserves the 7. Convergence, Speed Force #1, written by Tony Bedard, art by Tom Grummett. So we open up 1 year ago, Gotham City, before the dome fell. We got Wally West as the Flash, and he's running in for a Justice League call, and he's like, yep, I'm the Flash, and I got my twin kids, Jay and Iris, who are kind of just bobbing up and behind him in the Speed Force, like a draft. And it turns out that this is because of their connection through the Speed Force. They have some powers too that are still developing. But as such, whenever Wally taps into it, he's just kind of dragging them along with. And Iris points out, hey, Mom said we shouldn't be going anywhere dangerous, to which Wally says, we'll be back before she's even home. So they run into Gotham. Turns out there was some JLA alert for a chronal disturbance. And before they can even figure out what that's about, Flash feels the energy signature that's similar to Barry Allen's. And he's like, well, that's nuts. That shouldn't be a thing. And then as he's thinking, like, maybe I shouldn't have brought the kids, the dome comes down. We cut to 1 year later, and Wally is just bashing away at the dome with a pickaxe. He's doing everything he can to bust through it. The pickaxe eventually breaks. A crowd is formed around him. And he's just like, hey, everybody, thought I'd give it another go. You know, you never know the day that you might be able to pickaxe through the unbreakable wall. Anyway, bye now. And he walks off, and they're just like, was that the Flash? God, he's gone crazy. So we see Wally walking home, and he's upset. He's like, oh, I can't believe I took the kids. It was so irresponsible. And Iris probably thinks that we're all dead back at home. I got to get them back. I've tried talking to all the smart people in Gotham, Batman, Adam. None of them can figure out anything. I just got to figure out how to get him back. And so he arrives back home. And the kids are standing there waiting. Turns out that he thought it was Sunday. It's actually a weekday, and they're late for school. And he's so apologetic. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I just was trying to get... And the kids are like, Dad, it's okay. We get it. We miss Mom too. It's fine. And so as they are embracing, in comes Telos on the intercom. Hey, everybody. Domes are coming down. You're all going to have to fight each other. And as Wally and the kids look up in the sky, they see the Flashpoint Wonder Woman, the very warlike one. And they're like, that doesn't look like Wonder Woman. That's very different. But they say, yes, you will all have to defend and blah, blah, blah. So as the dome goes down, Wally wastes absolutely no time. He taps into the Speed Force. The kids also turn into their suits, and it's like, Dad, does this mean we're going home? Also, are you gonna have to fight Wonder Woman? Are you gonna have to kill each other? What's up? And Wally's like, hey, kids, nobody's dying today. It's all good. So they step outside, and the crowd's like, Flash, what's up with Wonder Woman? What's going on? And he's like, I don't know. We're gonna figure it out. And he tells the kids, look, you guys stay home. I don't want you guys stepping foot while this has happened. You stay there. And he looks up and somehow sees that the Justice Riders, the old West version of the Justice League from their Earth, is in trouble. They're being attacked by Hawk people, which is a direct relation to what happened in Nightwing Oracle. And he's like, I have to go try to help them. You guys stay put. So he runs out of town, out into a desert. He sees a whole bunch of the other cities. And he's like, they all kind of vaguely look like metropolises and Gothams and central cities, but they're not. And as he arrives at the Justice Riders town, it's already too late. Telos comes over the intercom just like, you're too late, Flash. Hawk people beat you to it, and they're all dead already. They were weak. They deserve to be destroyed. And so Telos starts turning the whole place to dust, including all the people there, straight up Thanos snap. And as Flash is running through, he starts panicking. He's like, oh God, the death, the destruction. What happens if I lose? What happens to my kids? And because he thinks about his kids, Jay and Iris pop up, once again bobbling around in the Speed Force draft. And they're like, Dad, what? You told us to stay inside. What's going on? And he's like, sorry, didn't mean to think about you. But look, we got to get back to our Gotham, like now. But I don't know where it is. I lost track of it. So I'm going to need you guys to keep an eye out. We're going to run through like every city that we can find. So they run through, they go through a Bizarro city. They go through a Nazi Germany, Earth city. They go through one that looks a hell of a lot like Krypton. One that looks like the antimatter universe, until finally they show up at the Zoo Crew universe. And immediately Jay's like, Dad, stop, hold on. We got like talking animals and cartoon physics. What the hell is going on here? And Iris is like, oh, you're so dumb. That's not what's happening. And Wally's like, no, that is what's happening. Be nice to your brother, but we can't stop. We got to get back to our version of Gotham. And we see creeping down the alley is a shadowy figure who takes off after them. And as they start running their way back to Gotham, it starts catching up on them as a blue blur. And immediately Jay's like, hey, something's gaining on us. What are we supposed to do? So they finally make their way back to their own Gotham. They stop. Jay and Iris land. And it's like, okay, we might have to fight. Just remember everything I taught you. Stay behind me. And as this thing comes up, Wally's like, I was expecting Reverse Flash or Savitar or literally anything else, but not this. And in comes a turtle speedster whose name is Fastback. And he's like, what? You've never seen a superhero before? And Wally shakes it off and he's like, look, if you want to fight, if this is about our Earths fighting each other, you can't take me on, man. And he's like, hey, I said superhero. I don't want to fight you. Look, I saw you running through. I saw you were a speedster. And I thought, hey, there's got to be a better way than fighting on behalf of a giant alien god. Let's see if we can work this out together. Let me help you. You can help me. I think that works out pretty well. But before Wally can say anything, a voice from behind says, "Oh, you talking about gods and stuff? Yeah, I'm going to send you to meet yours." And in comes Flashpoint Wonder Woman, sword drawn, saying, I've been told I have to fight you. You brought your kids and a pet. I don't understand what that's all about, but regardless, I will fight to defend my Amazon empire. So yeah, Flash v. Wonder Woman. The only thing that I found a little bit confusing in this one, which I'll counter with a good thing, but the confusing bit was the confusion over Barry Allen's energy signature. He said he felt that as he was running into Gotham. And my only confusion with that is, from my understanding, Barry was alive at Flashpoint, considering that he's the one who caused Flashpoint. And the way the panel was worded, it made it seem like Wally was like, but that can't be the case. Barry's dead. It didn't exactly say that, but that's the vibe I got. So to have him be confused that Barry's energy signature was around, kind of just, I don't know. I could have used a little bit more explanation. Maybe he was talking more about like time flux or something like that. I don't know. The good thing, I really, really like how they do a direct call out to here's what is happening right now over in the Nightwing Oracle issue as well. And it gives just a little bit more structure to this event that makes it feel a lot more orchestrated than just kind of lazily slapped together of a bunch of tie-ins that don't have to reference each other. So kudos to that. I like that consistency. Overall, I think this one's probably going to end up being like a 7 for me. It doesn't quite hit any major highs, but it's also not a bad issue either. So I'm curious to see how Fastback the Turtle is going to fight against Flashpoint Wonder Woman. I'm sure it will be insane. Convergence Titans #1, written by Fabian Nicieza, art by Ron Wagner. So this issue is told from the perspective of Red Arrow, Arsenal, Speedy, whatever you want to call him, Roy Harper. And we get a little flashback to the Teen Titans saying like, yeah, we were sidekicks, but, you know, we had to grow up or choose not to. And we see Roy's basically saying, yeah, I chose not to. I got involved in drugs. I was recovering. I became Arsenal. I became a single father. I lost my arm. I got a cybernetic arm. And then the bad thing that happened to me was I lost my daughter, Leanne Harper. She was killed. And I know it's not my fault. I understand that. But like, I was left at a crossroads to choose whether or not it was going to ruin me or improve me. And I chose ruin. But that was then a year later, a dome covered Gotham City. Everyone was trapped inside. Everyone started losing their powers. And everyone was faced with that choice again. Do they turn to ruin or do they improve? And I chose improve this time. So with no metahumans, everything's just a little bit less anxious. Everyone's managing to make do with what they can. There's a lot less crime in Gotham because of it. And they all got grants from the Wayne Foundation to be able to, you know, make do what they can. And so Roy says that he's doing a lot of good around the neighborhood. He shows up at some sort of children's home, and they're all interested by his cybernetic arm. And just, he's like, does a little trick with his fingers, whatnot, and just like, yeah, it's the most interesting thing they've ever seen. Right up until that day when they look up in the sky and see, wouldn't you know it, Talos is lowering the dome. And he says, hey, everybody, you're going to have to fight each other. Good luck. So Roy immediately calls up Donna and Starfire, who are doing a photo shoot in Donna's studio. And they go outside, they take a look at it, and they're like, yeah, okay, I guess we're on an alien planet. That makes sense, I guess. Do your powers feel like they're back? And Starfire's like, let's find out. And they're on like the 30th floor. They just jump off. She just jumps off and she's just like, yep, nope, I got my powers back. It's great. Donna, give it a shot. So Donna also jumps off. She flies around. She's like, oh God, yeah. I thought not having my powers was a blessing, but this is fantastic. So they fly around for a little bit before they have to, get to work, do what they can. And Arsenal's like, yeah, well, I'm going to go do a sweep of the city. Maybe you guys should put on your uniforms. So turns out that he's got this big bunker that he's built. He goes down, retinal scans, all this stuff, and it's just loaded up with weapons. And he's like, this is what I used my Wayne Foundation grant for. I'm using it to keep the city safe, and I tell myself that I'm doing all this for her, for Leanne, to be in her memory, more or less. So he's got all the CCTV cameras, access to all of them. He's keeping an eye on it. And he sees that the security grid that he set up in the Port Adams section has been compromised. There's something going on there. So he tells Donna and Starfire, hey, did you got to go deal with that? And she's like, okay, but did you hear the voice? And he's like, well, no, what voice? What did the voice say? It's like, the voice specifically said that we were chosen as champions and we're going to have to fight a battle and blah, 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 that whole thing. And so Starfire's excited to fight, and Donna's just like, yeah, some things will never change. But they see this big explosion across the city, so they fly over to it, and they come across the extremists, who are from a planet called Angor. They took over their planet. You got Gorgon, Lord Havoc, Dreamslayer, Tracer, and Diehard. By the way, they're from Earth 8, or at least some version is. They're stand-ins for Marvel villains, specifically like Doctor Doom, Doc Ock, a bunch like that. So at that point, they've gone toe-to-toe with the Justice League, and so Starfire's like, yep, let's do it, let's fight. So a big fight breaks out. It's, toss and turn. Sometimes one side is up, sometimes the other is. But we get the one named Dreamslayer who's like, hey, I don't really want to play by the rules of whatever chess master is doing all this stuff. I kind of want to go fight the chess master. I don't want to be a pawn on the board. So we see Arsenal watch Starfire get zapped by a few of them, and he's like, look, they're some of the toughest I know. They won't last 5 minutes without help. So he goes into a back room, and his normal, everyday civilian arm he takes off and replaces with his cybernetic Arsenal arm. And he's like, all right, I'm doing it for Leanne's memory, to make her loss more meaningful. So we see Donna and Starfire have been trapped. Arsenal comes in, fires off some arrows, takes out the Doc Ock stand-in. And he's like, yeah, any other reason that I would do this, for the rush, for hearing scum scream out in pain, anything like that, it wouldn't be for her, and therefore I wouldn't even know who I am. And as Lord Havoc, aka the Dr. Doom stand-in, comes in, just like, all right, crush them, my extremists. In comes Dreamslayer, who's like, now hold on a moment. We don't have to do that, because Roy Harper will betray them. And Roy raises up his arm, and he's got guns trained on him, and just like, yeah, you want to bet, bro? And Dreamslayer manages to conjure up an exact duplicate of Leanne Harper and says, if you betray them, I can give you your daughter back. And he's just like, what? And he's like, yeah, no. We're in a place outside of time and space and whatnot, and my powers, they grant me the ability to pluck anyone from any time, and I can pull her back. So this could, this is your child. I can bring her back, and you can have her, or you can fight against us and lose her forever. So what is it going to be? And Roy, internally, he's panicking. He's just like, everything I've done is in her memory. What wouldn't I do to bring her back? It's all been for her. And so the guns on his arms pivot off to the sides, now aimed at Starfire and Donna. And as they question like what he's doing, he fires off the shots and seemingly has shot his teammates. I mean, it's a choice. I don't know a whole lot about Cry for Justice. I'm not too aware of that. I know that that's kind of where the Leanne Harper stuff happened, and then all the fallout afterwards. But I do like it as a character beat. I like the idea of, you're in this world, you've managed to make peace with a lot of your former past, and you're improving your life, and then you're given this temptation of, you can actually get back to your happiest point again. You can just do that. I appreciate how it doesn't pull its punch in, like him not being the big hero and saying like, no, I'm okay with who I am now. It's like, no, this is a father mourning his daughter. He would absolutely do it. So hopefully they don't undo that in the next issue. I'm curious to see how this all plays out. I don't think he's actually going to get his daughter back, but if he does, all the better for it. So yeah, it's just a 7 for me right now. I think it could have done like a bigger push of explaining exactly the status quo of what Roy Harper is, without just these broad sweeping statements of like addict, recovery, cybernetic arm, lost daughter. Like, give me just a little bit more of his mental state as we went into this. Where did we leave him? But it did a good job of developing where he is now, so that gets it to 7. Convergence, Batman and Robin #1, written by Ron Marz, art by Dennis Cowan. So we open up with Poison Ivy. She's been running a garden in Gotham ever since it's been domed, keeping the food up for everybody. And in comes Mr. Freeze, freezes it solid, and Poison Ivy's like, those are mine. And it turns out Mr. Freeze is part of a larger cartel run by Penguin. Also got Killer Croc, Man-Bat, and Black Mask there. And Penguin's like, now, Poison Ivy, please, you've been running this farm and giving this food out to the people in Gotham for like a year now. You filthy commie? Like, what are you're not making a profit here? Me and my little crew will be taking over production now and making a tidy sum off of having these people not have any other food sources to go to. And so, Penguin's just being a dick here. And Poison Ivy's like, screw you, you're not doing this. And so Man-Bat scoops her up, flies her up in the air, and Penguin's just like, all right, well, that's one way to brew the garden. And then in comes the Batjet. Batman and Robin are there. Robin jumps out, kicks Man-Bat in the face as Poison Ivy is being dropped down to the ground. And Robin's like, hey, don't worry, I've got this, as he's fighting Man-Bat. And Batman's like, yeah, I've got this, he says, as he has to swoop around and save Poison Ivy. So Robin drives Man-Bat into a big archway, a stone archway, as Batman comes down to fight against the rest of the crew. Robin goes up against Black Mask. Batman initially goes up for Mr. Freeze, and he's like, you know what? I'm not even interested. I'm done. And so he just gives up immediately. Meanwhile, as Batman is distracted by punching out Penguin, Killer Croc sneaks up behind him and bites him in the shoulder pretty badly. Batman manages to knock out a few teeth with punches and tells him, oh, you should go back to your sewer. And Croc is like, I'll go back on a full stomach, as he tries to bite Batman. Robin is too far away. He's not able to get in time. But in swoops Red Hood, who looks completely different than any version of Red Hood I've ever seen. But he comes in, and they're like, wait a minute, Jason, is that you? And he's like, yeah, it's me. And he helps Batman up, and Batman's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I'm just trying to help. And he's like, okay, it's been a year. Where have you been? And he's like, I've been around. Look, from now on, Red Hood and Scarlet, who's someone flying a helicopter that Red Hood absconds off to, he's like, Red Hood and Scarlet will both be around. And Robin's just like, the hell is that about? Has he been here this whole time? Why is he just showing up? And Batman's like, yeah, I'm fine, as my blood is gushing out from Killer Croc's bite. Thanks for asking. So Poison Ivy steps up and says, oh, Batman, thank you. You've kept Gotham safe once again. You've been doing this so much for the past year. And he's like, I've been doing it for years. This is just another day of it. So she's like, oh, how long can we keep up this fight? And he's like, oh, as long as I have to, because I have help now. And so they get back into the Batcave, and Robin's just pissy. Batman's like, hey, look, we need to talk about this. Jason showing up does not supplant you as Robin. You are still my son. That is more important. And Robin's like, oh, what? That's supposed to make me feel better? Yeah, okay. You have no idea what I'm feeling right now. We've been keeping Gotham safe by ourselves for a year now, and then Red Hood shows up and you just welcome in like open arms? Nah, screw that. Maybe you should get yourself a new partner. Or, the same one you had before. So he storms off as Alfred's offering him dinner. And Alfred goes over to Batman. He's like, is everything cool? And, you got a giant wound there. Would you like me to sew it up? And Batman's like, I'm more worried about the wounds I may have inflicted upon my son. So we see him in the library talking to the big portrait of Thomas Wayne. And he's like, oh, I didn't raise him. He has so much anger, blah, blah. I still don't know how to reach him, because obviously we haven't reached that point in the timeline. And we see Alfred come in, and he's like, unfortunately, I have to inform you that when I was trying to give Damian his dinner, he's not here. He left the manor, and also a Batmobile is missing. And Bruce is like, well, I'm sure I know exactly where he's at, and I hope I can just figure out what to do when I get there. So we cut to Robin just trying to kick Red Hood in the face, and Red Hood's like, I don't want to fight you, man. And he tells Scarlet to hold back. And Robin's like, good, you can just stand there and let me kick you in the head a few times. So eventually he does throw an elbow, and he's like, all right, fine, I guess this is my battle. And as they start to actually fight, in comes Batman, and he's like, both of you, stop this. Jason, you are a grown man, and this is a child. Don't do that. Don't try to fight him. And Robin's like, shut it. Just tell me, which of us did you actually show up here to save? And then Telos pops over the intercom. Hey, everybody, domes are coming down. Time to fight. And as he says all of this, we see like a giant. Look, the art in this book is like kind of hit or miss for me, but we see this horrifically, like slowly growing larger form of Telos across the skyline, and he's like, yes, you will have to fight, and I'm going to watch the whole thing. So at that point, Robin's just like, okay, so the city's free now, right up until someone tries to kill us, right? And he's like, yeah, this is going to be a problem. Hey, Jason, I'm going to need everyone's help. And he looks over at Robin as he says that. And Jason's like, what? So we're supposed to fight another city and all the heroes from that? And Batman's like, no, we're not going to be forced into combat. We're not going to do that. To which point they immediately get a spotlight shown on them. And he says, ha, you will have no chance, for we are the extremists. Mind you, we already introduced a group of the extremists over in the Titans book. So this is a different group of the extremists, which is Carney, Brute, Death Angel, and Mean Streak, which I'm just going to say feels like a B team. Yeah, all right. So mild things. One, the very different outfit for Red Hood. Who the hell is Scarlet? Like, I really hope we get an answer on that one, because I don't think Scarlet's shown up in anything ever. So, curious about that one. The Damian bits feel fine for this version of Batman. I do think that Superman did kind of the right thing here, which is you have a year of growth. An actual calendar year of growth that you can give your characters. I think having them fall back into that same pattern of Damian's so hot-headed and he doesn't know if he belongs here as Robin, you could have grown out of that over a year. I think there should have been a little bit more evolution in the characters, but you know, this is familiar. This is something we can deal with. I'm all right with it. I just think there was something more that could have been done. So overall, I'm going to say this one's probably I would say 7 if it wasn't for some really shaky art at times, so I think I'm going to give it a 6.5 instead. It's not that it's bad, it's just definitely not for me. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with whoever the hell Scarlet and whoever the hell these extremists are. Convergence Harley Quinn #1, written by Steve Pugh, art by Phil Winslade. So this issue opens up with Harley Quinn robbing a museum of art that apparently, as far as I can tell, she's taken umbrage with, because there's an artist who uses animal skulls that are bejeweled. And the insurance company, when putting him up in Gotham, said you can't use a cat, a penguin, or a two-faced snake skull because it's Gotham. People might take umbrage with that. However, a hyena skull was still allowed, and therefore Harley's trying to steal that. And as she's doing so, all of the henchmen that she's hired are just flubbing it. They're saying it's a terrible plan. One of them is trapped underneath the skull and is being bitten by her pet hyenas. So as they are being attacked by the hyenas, trying to get the skull over top, one of them opens fire on all of the cops, and Harley's like, hey, no, this is supposed to be a classy job, don't do that. He gets shot up by the police, and Harley starts yelling at him for getting it all wrong. So as she is about to attack some of the other cops there, we see she flips around and stops one guy from shooting her by smashing his hand with the mallet. And he's just like, all right, you guys get the skull. I'm going to mash this potato and split. To which the cop says, I think you mean banana. Banana would make more sense as a split reference. And she's like, oh, hey, thanks, Angel Face. And then sees that he's reaching for his gun. And she's like, oh, you can't even meet a nice guy in the middle of a gunfight without him trying to murder her. So all of a sudden, the hyenas start acting weird. Harley looks back at what's going on. All the cops, all the robbers, they're all looking up at the sky. And Harley falls back on her ass next to this cop she was about to kill by seeing the giant hexagonal grid popping up in the sky. So they were all put underneath the dome. We then see some time passes. We're back probably a year later. And Harley is maybe not cured, but she's out of her outfit. She's back as Harleen, and we see she's talking to a doctor, a therapist, and she's pointing out like, oh yeah, you got your fish tank back. I used to have this in your office. I used to imagine all the fishes were swimming in between my fingers during our talks. And he's like, okay, all right. Do you ever imagine, hearing his voice anymore, the bad voice? And she just like cocks her head and just like, no, as she very clearly sees some version of the Joker there. We see that there are numerous support groups in this hospital all about just trying to adjust to life under the dome, how they're managing to do what they can. And Harley's just like, yeah, no, like, I feel bad for these people, but I'm actually doing great. This level of structure and like not being able to do anything, it's really working for me now. And we see a flashback to when she was let out of prison in order to basically apologize to the guard to try to get some empathy for the cop that she was going to kill. And then she went into his room. He had a box of chocolates and some coffee. And immediately Harley's like, are these for anybody? And just starts stuffing her face and then like leaps over him to get to the coffee. And he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Don't they feed you? And she's like, they don't let me have caffeine. So at some point later on, he was in a help group, and it's because he can't be a cop anymore with a smashed hand. And so Harley shows up, and as she's going to the meeting, that's how they kind of met up. And it seems like the rest is history. So we see her hop on a bus to go home, and she's looking at her hand, and she's like, oh, no fish today? Well, I'm going to need you to stick around, guys, because I don't have my meds. I'm officially run out of them, so I need you to help me stay in track. And then all of a sudden, as she's prepping some food, we see the Joker like sneak up behind her, and she starts freaking out. She calls for Louis, who's the name of the cop. Louis comes running from the bedroom, and she's like, there's no one here, right? Or it's just us. We're alone. And she's like, there's no one left in the world, just you and I. And so she jumps his bones on the couch, and they go for it. We then go up to a rooftop garden that is run by Poison Ivy, and it's under attack by a bunch of goons, and they're all like, you don't have any powers, Poison Ivy, you're just a regular woman. We can go ahead and take all of your stuff. That's just what's going to happen. And as they start attacking her and some hired help that she has, in comes Catwoman, who's like, you really think powers made us special? Now we're just a couple of weirdos, and we had this all going beforehand. So they knock out all the guys who are planning on robbing Ivy, and then all of a sudden, all the dogs start howling across the town. And Ivy hears it and she's like, what? Something's wrong. And in comes Telos. Ding dong. Everybody, time to fight. The domes are coming down. And as Ivy and Catwoman are looking up at the sky, I guess that they can see specifically who their champion is, who one of the people that has to fight for them is, as well as their opponent. And it turns out that their opponent is Captain Carrot of the Zoo Crew, and their champion is, of course, Harley Quinn. And immediately everyone's like, wait a minute, no, Harley can't. What? She's out of the game. She's off her stuff. She doesn't have anything anymore. And so one of the bad guys who was still semi-conscious, sees all this happening, is like, Jesus Christ, we can't let her decide whether we live or die. And he calls down to his crew and says, hey, everybody, go get Harley Quinn. Offer. Maybe if she dies, the big alien god person will choose another champion to take our stead. And so Ivy wraps the guy up before too much damage is done, but it's too late. People are on the way, so Catwoman and Ivy are like, all right, we need to find Harley fast. Ivy also starts turning back into her green form at this point because her powers are back. And we see Harley and Louis are on the couch. They're asleep. There's a buzz at the door, and as Louis goes to answer it, Ivy and Catwoman just bust in. And they're like, Harley, code red, let's go. And Louis's like, hey, she's not a part of that life anymore. She's not going to do this. Like, you need to stay separate. And Ivy goes and gets a big old thing of medicine and syringes and whatnot. And Catwoman's like, hey, look, Ivy needs to knock off Harley's mood stabilizers, get her back to her old self, and then just maybe she'll have a fighting chance. To which Louis says, her meds ran out a month ago. This is all just her. She's been doing all of this on her own. But Ivy injects her with whatever sort of crazy serum they had. So Louis comes out just like, oh God, where did you find that? Get out of here. And we see Harley goes on a little bit of an acid trip. And as she comes back down, she comes to Louis and Ivy standing over top of her. And he's like, Harley, baby, you okay? And we see her just a kaleidoscope of Joker faces and these little goldfish that she was picturing before. Now all of them with the teeth as she's in her full Harley outfit, and she says, "I feel hilarious." So, Harley versus Captain Carrot of the Zoo Crew up next month. I guess I'm all right with it. It's weird because this is Harley before New 52. And I feel like everything I know about Harley is her characterization in the New 52. So to see her so completely separate from that as a completely, essentially different character here, I don't know. It's just kind of like different. There's no good way to really say it, but like if you know Harley Quinn in the New 52, it's very much Deadpool style humor. It's very much just over the edge, completely zany, crazy, and wacky. Whereas this feels a lot more pulled back. It feels a lot more actual character rather than jokes. And I like it. I like the way that they're playing with it here, but it's just so strange to see Harley as that. So I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing, but like I do enjoy it. So I'm going to say this one is probably going to be, I think a 7.5. I think I'm going to say a 7 for pretty much everything, but I do really like Phil Winslade's art. It's very well detailed, and it does a good job of like getting across the absolute insanity that Harley feels whenever she has her little mental breaks here. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 7.5. I'm actually very impressed by this issue. And that's it. That is all the comics that came out from DC Comics this April 8th, 2015. And I gotta tell you, I have been dreading Convergence month. Like, absolutely not looking forward to this at all. But week 1, really? Not that bad. Like, I'm not saying it's great. By all means, I'm sure I'll be sick of these repeated storylines of like, no, we don't have to fight by the end of the 8 weeks. But like, for now, I'm okay with it. So just hold me to it. Hold me to a little bit of hope here that maybe, just maybe, it's not as bad as it seems. Anyway, what do we got coming out next week? Next week, DC has decided to take pity. We only have 11 comics coming out every week for the next 2 months, except for one point where we got to do Batman, Superman, and Multiversity all at once, but let's just ignore that. So it's going to be one normal Convergence issue and then 10 tie-ins every single week. So next week we have Convergence number 2 as expected, as well as, in no particular order, Catwoman, Green Arrow, Justice League International, Suicide Squad, Superboy, Aquaman, Batman Shadow of the Bat, Green Lantern Parallax, Supergirl Matrix, and Superman Man of Steel. These are all part of the pre-Zero Hour books. So I'll be honest, I don't know what the difference of pre-Zero Hour and like pre-Infinite Crisis is. I feel like it's a very small distinction between the two of them. Because like, what did Zero Hour really change? Like, really anything? Not much. So yeah, no, we will get there, and I don't really have anything else here to say at the end, so let's get into the contractual stuff. Hey, do you have anything that you'd like to say about this comic series? Anything at all that I've talked about on this show? Feel free to leave a comment down below this video if you're watching the YouTube version, or if you're listening to the audio version, you can find us over on social media at Discord, Patreon, and subreddit. Is Patreon technically social media? I don't know, but you actually get to see everything that you are subscribed to without an algorithm, so it's got one up on like 95% of other social media places. But yeah, that's really going to do it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to tune in next week and give this week's episode a positive interaction, whatever that may be. More Convergence on the way. I'm really just filling for dead air here because I'm trying to remember how I end this episode in any sort of normal way. And for some reason, switching out of New 52 mode and going into Convergence mode has just robbed me of that. I think I have to say something about domes and fighting. That seems right to me. But regardless, thank you for paying attention. Thank you for tuning in. And always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.